Right, so welcome to episode 3 of the Popper Pod. If you're new to this is just a general chit-chat podcast that we do. 3 young dads just trying to make sense of the crazy world that we're living in and bringing our kids up in. Just want to give a little bit of a plea as well. Any of our friends and family that are watching, please make sure that you're commenting, liking and subscribing to the channel. It really helps us out, gets us into the algorithm, and will help this podcast spread, which is what we want to happen. But thank you to everybody so far who's been supporting and been watching. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, our biggest fan, my mum. Cheers, mum.
Yeah, second biggest our mum. So
Smash it already.
So, what's happening then, lads? I think we've pretty much the sort of talk of the town at the moment is the big fight that happened on Saturday.
Great fight.
I know you two are big into your boxing and your MMA, so Ricky, you were looking forward to this fight for a while, weren't you?
Yeah.
We were going to watch it, but
yeah, we flopped it, didn't you?
Yeah, we did a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we were going to get up, and then I think it was about 3:30, wasn't it? It emerged that it was going to be airing, so we decided against it. But got up next day, watched the fight after, didn't we? And quality fight. Just Tyson did what we knew Tyson would do. Third time now. There's no debate, is there?
No.
No.
Different Deontay Wilder as well in this fight, which was nice to see. You know, first 3 rounds in particular came out. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
he had a different game plan.
Mm-hmm.
Just an epic fight. Just a shame that after the fight he didn't show the sportsmanship he should have shown.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I know Fury came out victorious, but there's a couple of instances where it could have gone either way, couldn't it? 2 knockdowns for Wilder, 3 knockdowns for Fury. Could have gone either way, and you can't take it away from Wilder. Like, he put on a good show.
No, you can't.
Do you know what I mean?
Put on a great show, and he was always in with a chance of.
And he was
winning
always
the
in
fight
with a chance. One of those punches connected cleanly.
Yeah,
and it would have been lights out, wouldn't it? But yeah, it was a bit of a shame at the end. That I just thought after that trilogy, they've both put their heart and soul into it.
I know.
It's show business at the end of the day, but a lot of boxing is, and I think someone like Fury realises that it's a bit of a circus, it's a bit of a show, but when it's all said and done, we're 2 fighters, we both got respect for each other. I was just a bit disappointed that he didn't.
There's no debating it now, is there? Do you know what I mean? Like, the Wilder fans said that he had the first fight, but technically, come on, Fury had the first fight, but you want to give it a draw, that's fine, give it a draw.
Yeah.
And then the second fight, hands down, Fury won. Do you know what I mean? No one's debating that.
Yeah.
So obviously there's a clause in the contract. Wilder knows that, gets a third fight. Fury wins again, unbelievable knockout round 11. Do you know what I mean? It's then like, come on. As a sportsman,
how long are we going to
shake hands and say, well done. Do you know what I mean? There's no more fights after this, but the fact that he did.
Well, I've read today that he's going to try for a 4th.
Is it?
Come on.
I mean, I don't even know if they can contractually if they can do that or whatever. But someone.
It's like the Fast and Furious franchise.
Well,
it's going to
this
bleed
is it.
it.
I mean, is it like Street Fighter where you just keep going back to the home screen and keep going till you beat the boss?
Surely
or
not.
what?
Surely
or,
they can't have a 4th.
I mean, I don't.
They were
think.
pushing it at the 3rd, really, weren't they?
Yeah.
It was one of them where when the fight got made, it was kind of like, it's not necessary, it's not needed, especially after Tyson Fury came back from, was it 28 stone that he weighed when he, at the peak of his weight? Or
I watched a video today.
Right.
It was on Twitter or something of him in 2017.
Yeah.
When Wilder had first called him out.
Right.
And mate, you wouldn't recognise him.
No.
And he was the way he was talking. Like
Yeah.
I think he was just like on a run, and he was like, "You've given me the fire." Sort of like, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but you give me the fire in my belly to come back, and thank you for like laying down the gauntlet, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Guess who's back? The one and only. Shout going out to the big bronze bomber, Deontay Wilder. Big respect for giving me the motivation, telling me I can't do it, and I'm finished. Coming back for you, baby. Coming back for you. I'm going to fulfill that promise I made to you a few years ago. You know what I'm talking about. And went back for the big stiff man. The man who struggled with a midget. You up there, struggling with the midgets. Please, why will he be with the Gypsy King? 6'9", 18.5 stone, in shape, fast. Oh, I'll obliterate you, boy.
Yeah. And now look at that. 4 years later, three times he's beaten.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, undisputed now, undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
But also, this brings up another question, and something that I'm quite pleased about is, and again, saw this on Twitter or Instagram or something, but it was a picture of Tyson Fury, you know, looking at how he does. Because let's face it, he's not. You wouldn't look at him and say he's a specimen, would you? Mm-hmm. But you know, someone said this body represents the peak level of male fitness now. This is the baddest man in the world at the moment. You know, the toughest, strongest man in the world at the moment when it comes to the fight game, about boxing or whatever, right? But I mean, even as an athlete, to go 11 rounds with another guy the size of Deontay Wilder, and he's the peak. He represents the peak level of male performance. But I think that's a good thing because, you know, I come from the fitness industry, and when I first got into fitness, which was when I started teaching classes in 2004, became qualified in 2006. Fitness was different then. It was about performance. It was about, you know, having good cardio and stamina. It didn't really matter much how you looked. But now, fitness is just purely based on image, pecs, abs, muscles, whatever, which a lot of the time comes from, you know, performance-enhancing drugs. So I think it's good. Go on.
I just think, you know, aesthetically, he doesn't look the greatest, and especially when you put him. Like, let's like you got AJ right, and you got Wilder. Yeah. You look at them with their shirts off; they're in great shape. Do you know what I mean? They look incredible.
Action, then?
Yeah, they really do, don't they? And then you put him next to Tyson Fury. Do you know what I mean? He looks like a bit of a blob. But like he said in his post-fight press conference, like aesthetically, you might look at me and think I'm not in the greatest shape, but I was in the greatest shape of my life. You know, 11th round, he's still, do you know what I mean, on his toes, moving, head movement, do you know what I mean, looking great. So maybe that might highlight it's not all just about image.
It's
because
not.
that's obviously
It's
something
not.
that...
And I think he's, you know, one thing about Fury is, you've always loved Fury, haven't you? I mean,
mate,
you spend hours watching videos of him, whatever.
You have a post of him, like, in your bedroom, and then there was a couple times
Fury
knock.
Fury says he's a scholar of boxing. I think Ricky's a scholar of Fury.
Probably am. Yeah, I've watched every single. I mean, there's hour or like some of them are actually 2 hours long of like Fury videos from. You know, have you heard of IFL TV?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like Coogan, Cassius, just like back in the day, like you can type in like, you know, Tyson Fury hour long, and the videos that he did back then were just brilliant, and everything that he said, everything that man has said has manifested and become true. Yeah. Whatever he said about any fighter or about himself or about his own, like, you know, he'd admit to saying, you know, I've got mental problems and I'll eventually probably, you know, go off the rails, and who knows what I'm going to do after the, you know, and that's basically what he did. And he's always maintained he's the best in the division, and AJ's going to get found out for being just nothing more than a weightlifter and, you know, whatever. And, you know, there's some great, so if you haven't watched IFL TV and you do like Fury, go back, have a listen. There's loads of content there. Yeah. Brilliant, yeah.
And I think, you know, he is a conversation starter for a lot of people. There's, you know, you could talk about him all day, but I think in terms of the positives, you know, like I just said, there's the conversation now around how men need to look, you know, and how men need to look to be considered athletic and fit and healthy. Yeah. But also, he's done a massive lot for like mental health as well, hasn't he?
Oh yeah, massive. I think unfortunately, a lot of people are seeing Instagram and they're seeing these kind of like bodybuilders, because effectively that's the one that people are going to follow and think, oh, like if you're just a normal person. But what people don't realise is a lot of these people are just bodybuilders, and they are on all sorts of gear, all sorts of steroids. Yeah. So, you know, they might look healthy on the outside,
but if you cut them open,
they're not going to be looking so healthy. And you know, it's like a lot of these people on like Love Island that go in there. They go in there, they're drinkers, they're smokers, they're staying up till all hours in the morning. I'm not saying they're all on steroids, but you know, some of them may be on steroids. And you know, it's just because you look healthy on the outside doesn't mean you're healthy on the inside.
Yeah, 100%.
And Tyson Fury, is a clear example of that.
Proved it. But we used to see it back in the day, like when we were training, because we come from like a martial arts background and that, and you'd see it all the time at the fights. A geezer would come out pumped, looking like
Stacked,
a bodybuilder, stacked,
yeah.
and then this little like skinny guy or this guy with no muscle mass, no definition, nothing would come out, and you'd be like, he's going to get battered.
Yeah.
And then he just wipes the floor with the muscle guy because the muscle guy was so heavy and he wasn't limber, he wasn't flexible, he had no cardio. And then you got this little whippet who's just, can go for days.
I think the UFC highlights that a lot at the moment as well, because you'll get those who, like, you'd look in the street and think, oh, he's just a skinny, petite guy, scrawny.
Like O'Malley, he's like that.
Sean O'Malley, perfect example. Do you know what I mean? Like, his movements, his jiu-jitsu, and just the way he is on his feet. And you put him up against someone else who aesthetically, again, looks amazing, who you'd probably have your money on, but it's not the case.
Mate, another one is Paddy the Baddie. I mean,
look at him,
looks, he looks like he should be in the Beatles.
He looks good. He does look good.
But before that first
have
fight,
you seen him
in
recently
UFC,
though? I think he balloons, between fights.
He does, massively.
Yeah, he calls himself the Ricky Hatton.
And that's exactly what
he puts on a lot of weight. Like he eats all sorts and drinks, and and then he obviously gets in training camp before his fights. So at the moment he ain't looking.
Scouse lad.
That's the same with Darren Till, because he's Scouse, and I mean when he was fighting at welterweight, like he was getting down to 170. Like Darren Till in real life, I mean, I don't know the exact stats, but like he's very tall, and like he's a big lad, so like he's actually moved up now to middleweight because naturally he's a lot bigger, and like you would see him, a couple of weeks beforehand at his natural weight, and then you'd get down to 170
because they lose all sorts of weight, don't they? They like stop eating, don't they? For like 3 days in some cases, or
it's life threatening, mate. There's like talk about Darren Till. There's actually some footage on YouTube of one of his weight cuts where like they have to call in a paramedic and everything because like it's serious. Like he's just losing too much water,
dehydrating too fast, and
a lot of these fighters, it's almost part of their game plan to lose that weight before the fight so they can quickly put it back on in water. But where do you draw the line? Where does it become actually like negative for your fight performance? Where, I mean, our brother Keg used to fight at a high level and he would always kind of come in above weight. And he'd always have to lose 5-6 pounds, wouldn't he? Before, maybe more in some cases.
When he was fighting,
it would affect him.
And when he was fighting at like the lower levels where you're weighing on the same day, he would sometimes before a fight, he's running around the bloody car park in a bin liner, trying to sweat out the last bit of water. As he got further in his career, they'd weigh in a day or two before, and he'd be able to replenish and
but even a day or two before, think about how fatigued you're going to be.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Especially on the day before.
Which is why I don't understand why it seems to be part of the game plan for a lot of these UFC fighters, or are they just not making weight, or what?
I think they're just not. I think what it is that you've got your natural walking around weight, and you've got your fighting weight, and sometimes, like in our brother's case, Keg, phenomenally strong guy. For anyone his height, I don't think anyone could match him in strength. He's just abnormally strong, but he's 5'6", and he carries a lot of muscle mass in his leg.
I'm sure he's bigger than 5'6", isn't he?
I think he's 5'6", 5'6".
I don't know, he might be a bit
he says himself he's 5'6". He might be 5'7".
I think he's about 5'7".
5'7".
We'll give him an extra
but
inch.
We'll give him an inch. Yeah. But he carries a lot of weight in his legs, right? So if he was to fight at I think he used to fight at 75 kg, didn't he? Well, between 70 and 75.
70 before. No,
70. But he walks around at
I think 70 was the highest he went to. 70 was,
But he walks around naturally at about 75.
Yeah, probably 80.
Between 75 and 80.
Right.
Now, if he was to fight to that weight, strength-wise, he'll have no problem, right? But he's fighting guys who are we're talking 6-footers here, and when you're his height and you're fighting a guy who's 6 foot, that's a lot of range to be giving away.
Yeah.
So he had to come down to that weight because he would perform better in that weight category. And I think sometimes that's what it is with some people.
Well, 70 was the weight he went up to. I think at one point he was trying to fight 67 or 67. Yeah.
Which was just ridiculous.
Which was way too light. And then actually, when he went up to 70, he actually performed better because he wasn't having to cut.
Yeah. So,
but
it's one of them things. Like we all come in different shapes and sizes, and sometimes your natural weight isn't conducive to the size that you're at. So you have to either come down or go up to be.
Which is, I think, as well why Tyson Fury is such a phenomenon, because he's so big. He shouldn't really be able to. I mean, he's 6'9".
And yet he's like a piece of rubber.
Yeah, and yet he should not be able to move as
the
good
way
as
he does.
Because what did he? Was it 266 pounds?
No, 290, I think.
Was it 290?
I think Deontay Wilder weighed 266. Was it? I don't know.
I know Wilder was his heaviest because they're both the heaviest, weren't they? Both of them.
Yeah, I think Fury might have been about 290, and I think Wilder's about 266. Yeah, absolute beast. I mean, Wilder's
and his height as well, because what's he? He's like 6'6", isn't he?
Wilder's 6'7" or 6'6".
I thought you were about Fury.
No, Wilder's Fury's 6'9".
6'9".
Yeah.
6'9", 290 pounds.
Yeah,
Imagine that
and
coming at you.
and he's moving like that.
Take my wallet, please.
Unbelievable.
Mate, some of the punches he does literally just steamrolls. It's like there almost doesn't even look like there's that much technique. Obviously there is, but sometimes he's literally just like, he's so far away. He throws his jab, but then he comes straight over with that long right.
Yeah.
And there was times where you kind of think, like, what can Deontay Wilder do against such a big, powerful man?
But it's not just his offence; it's his defence as well. His movement,
his head movement, unreal.
Yeah, for a lot of his previous fights, a lot of the time he was almost doing too much defensively. He wasn't throwing enough punches, and he almost enjoyed the art of just kind of slipping and sliding.
He's a showman.
He is. Yeah. And I think now that he's teamed up with the Crunk Gym or whatever it is, Kronk Gym, they've obviously showed him to be a lot more aggressive on the turn, and he's done really well from it. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Speaking of another fight, I know because you guys are I know you're big into your UFC, aren't you?
Yeah.
So there's a big announcement that's just been made.
Leon Edwards,
local lad.
Okay, yeah.
Big fight, yeah. So Leon Edwards, Birmingham fighter, so local lad. Finally, after maybe like 3-4 years in the making, him and Masvidal have now got a date set for, I think it's like 11th of December.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a big fight because obviously Leon Edwards, he's kind of to a certain degree dominating the welterweight division. He hasn't had a title shot yet, but he's like now 9 or 10 fights undefeated. Obviously beat Nate Diaz recently. See Masvidal, everyone knows Masvidal. The BMF belt, etc.
Yeah, I like Masvidal.
And then obviously they had that altercation all those years ago at UFC London where they exchanged some words. Then Masvidal went over and hit Leon Edwards, and they cut him. And then that after he kind of had that fight with Dan Till at UFC London, obviously beat Dan Till in an amazing way, like a complete. I think hit Dan Till, and Dan Till rocked, and then did a 1-2 as he was going down, didn't he?
He almost ran at him while punching him.
Yeah. So it was like an unbelievable knockout. And then there was that beef for Leon Edwards. That elevated his career. And then from that it was the Ben Askren fight where he obviously did the flying knee.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be a big fight, boys. Very big fight. And obviously, it's great because it's a local lad who's obviously at that level.
Will that be in London or will it be in
Las Vegas?
Las Vegas.
Is
it
Las Vegas?
Yeah, Las Vegas.
Yeah. Whereabouts?
Las Vegas. Is it the MGM
I'm
Arena?
not sure.
Is that what they're doing MGM Arenas now?
Yeah.
Is that how big it is?
I think so. Yeah.
Wow.
I think so.
Yeah.
We don't quote me on it, but I think so.
Yeah.
It's crazy to see how far it's come, hasn't it? The UFC, and also I didn't even realise till the other day when I saw it on the UFC profile on Twitter or something that Masvidal started with Kimbo Slice on the street fighting.
Yeah.
I didn't even realise that.
Not? Okay,
No.
yeah.
No, because I'm not into it as much as you guys are. I mean, I'm getting a bit more into it now because of you guys. But obviously I know I know who Masvidal is simply because he was big on Trump. And obviously I'm coming out, but I'm a big Trump guy.
Yeah.
Subscribers!
400 dislikes.
But that's something we'll get more into and maybe explain the reasons behind it. Because don't just take for what the media say as gospel. There's always agendas behind certain things that are said and certain ways things are kind of portrayed and stuff like that. And hopefully you can maybe debunk it. You debunked a lot to me, to be fair.
Well,
I kind of listened a lot on what you had to say, and I'm kind of more towards that side now. I'd probably say, especially over Biden, for that much. But,
well, speaking of Biden,
go on.
Have you seen the Let's Go Brandon?
Is he still alive, Biden? Just checking.
Just about. He's hanging in there. But have you seen the Let's Go Brandon hashtag?
No.
So remember, this is and again we have to be careful what we say because the YouTube overlords and all that sort of stuff. But this is the guy who got 81 million votes. You know, the most votes than any other
American
president
history,
in American history. There's this big craze at the moment of all the football games on a Saturday that happen in America. Literally hundreds of thousands of people, all in unison, screaming, "Fuck Joe Biden!" Right?
Right.
Fuck Joe Biden.
Fuck Joe Biden! 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 Fuck Joe Biden!
It's hilarious because it just shows how the media will do anything to protect this establishment at the moment. So there's this NASCAR race, and there's a driver called Brandon, right? And he wins the race. So the woman from CNN or NBS, NSBC, whatever, goes over. She starts interviewing him, and the crowd are just shouting, "Fuck Joe Biden!" Right? So she's interviewing him, and clearly they're saying "F Joe Biden," right? And it's so clear that even the news channel are beeping out when they say F.
Okay.
She's like, "Can you hear the crowd? Let's go, Brandon." Right.
Brandon, you also told me, as you can hear the chants from the crowd, "Let's go, Brandon." Brandon, you told me you were going to kind of hang back those first two.
Oh
So they're trying to spin it, right? She must have. I mean, so they're trying to spin it that it's "Let's go, Brandon," and now all the news networks in America are running with
"Let's go."
It's not F Joe Biden.
Right.
It's "Let's go, Brandon." So there's this big hashtag now. But it just shows again how. Could you imagine when Trump was in power, right?
Yeah.
If every football match they were going F Donald Trump, it would be all over the news.
Of course, it would be.
They would be reveling in it. They'd be loving it. It would be everywhere. Yet at the moment, you know, videos are going up on social media of this, and they're getting taken down, right? And like I say, the mainstream media are covering it up and saying it's "Let's go, Brandon."
So basically, we're living in a world where we're not getting accurate news, and that's been pretty obvious for a while. But it seems to be getting more and more obvious as
so politicised now, isn't it? They've got an agenda and they're pushing that agenda.
Yeah, and for what reason? So why are they not publishing that, and why would they publish it against Trump? Is it the people that are in the establishment are running these news agencies, or what?
Well, the thing is, you know, a lot of the entertainment industry is left, you know, have leftist views, and I don't know whether it's because maybe, you know, a lot of people who go into media are kind of artsy and creative, and they're more. I think when you're that way inclined, you're more sort of like, you know, the world is a fairyland, and we should all be holding hands and kumbaya. Whereas when you are more of, let's say, you know, a builder, a plasterer, an entrepreneur, a go-getter, you do tend to have more sort of conservative values, right? That's what I think, but honestly, I don't know. You know, I think that the Democrats are, well, I think all politicians are corrupt, and I think, you know, I'm not saying Donald Trump was an angel, but suddenly this guy came in, and he was not towing the line.
Yeah,
he was the first person to come in and say, you know what, this is a joke. It's a swamp. What's going on here is disgusting. I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. I'm going to do what I want to do, and what I personally think is best for the country. And it just threatened everything that they, you know.
You almost get the feeling that the previous presidents were kind of almost handpicked and they were meant to be there. And Donald Trump was one of the first ones in a long time where he wasn't actually meant to ever get.
No, he wasn't. It was a joke.
And to be fair, when I first heard that Donald Trump was going to be running for president, I thought it was a joke. I thought there's no way he's going to get, you know, become the president of the United States. And
you know, the guy who was a star of The American Apprentice.
Yeah, that's it, mate. Did you see the video when he got taken out on WWE or WWE?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
When that was all going on, I looked at that and I was just
he took someone else.
He took someone out. Yeah. And
Cameo in Home Alone.
There's no way this guy can become the president of the United States of America. But
and then and I remember the day he became president, and I remember it. I saw it, and I was like, that's it. The world's going to end now, basically. I was like, we're going to be, he's going to nuke us within the first 24 hours.
Yeah. It makes a mockery of politics at first because it almost makes you believe, oh, well, anyone could be president, anyone could be prime minister. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. But actually, during his term as president, I think he proved himself to be a very, very capable leader.
I personally think so. 90% negative media coverage. He had everybody against him, yet he won the approval and the hearts of, most. I know 81 million voted for Joe Biden, but he won the hearts of a lot of people in America and people who wouldn't normally vote for a Republican. So, lots of Black people were converted to Republicans, Hispanics were converted to Republicans, and people who are normally, non-affiliated with any party converted to Republican because of Donald Trump.
This whole 81 million vote, do you believe it was true? Because there's obviously they think that it was kind of rigged.
So we have to be careful what we say because
going down the conspiracy wormhole.
We're not allowed to say that the election was stolen.
Okay.
But I think anybody in their right mind, regardless of what side of the fence you're on, politically, if you were to look at that election and think that everything was done above board, then you're a very naive person.
I struggle to believe that Joe Biden, who's got probably as much charisma as a bag of rice, bag of
spuds,
and can barely string a sentence together, has been able to kind of get the most votes in America. He didn't even do any rallies. Did
and
very
you look
few
at the
rallies.
Trump rallies. They were like, a Trump rally was like a Bon Jovi concert.
Yeah.
There was music. He was coming to the stage. Every stage, he was doing 3 rallies a day on the lead up to it, and every stadium was rammed. Like literally, people queuing up outside because they couldn't get in. And Joe Biden was doing, rallies with like 15 people sitting in a chair with circles in a field. He was doing rallies where people were turning up and hijacking his rallies with Trump flags and papping the horns. Like, everywhere he goes, he's met with flags saying F Joe Biden and whatever. Yeah. And yet we're meant to believe that this is the most popular president in history.
I think just on the subject of Trump, I think Trump's had a lot of slack over the years, and I think there's been a lot of things that he's been said have been taken out of context. A lot of policies that he's kind of almost been forced to make because of the Democrats have basically been viewed as being like, for example, the Muslim ban, when he banned Muslims from coming to the country. That was something that, the media, banning Muslims, racist, whatever. But when you spent the last 20 years bombing and displacing millions of Muslims, right, and then you become the president of your country. It's like if I go to my neighbour now and I punch my neighbour in the face, I'm not going to let him into my house the very next day. You're going to have some sort of, I'm going to probably ban him, and and I think sometimes there's logic in what he's saying. I'm not saying, and this is not like I'm not saying all Muslims, most Muslims are very peaceful people, or all Muslims are very peaceful. There's only a very select few that are, whatever, extremists and all that. But basically, I think.
He recognised that there's a radical branch of Muslim.
Well, here's the thing:
Islam.
The whole Muslim ban. Never once did he mention the word Muslim.
Right. Okay.
He never once called it a Muslim ban. He never used that rhetoric.
Okay, so that was just the media.
So it was the media saying, and the thing is, there was a lot of countries that were predominantly Muslim that were still allowed into the country. Mm-hmm. So that's the first misconception, is that he did a Muslim ban. He didn't do a Muslim ban. He did a ban on countries that he deemed a threat to the US. Yeah. It just so happened that many of those countries had a high population of Muslims. But the other thing is, what people fail to realise is this Muslim ban, these countries that he stopped coming into the country, that list was put together by the Obama administration.
Right.
It wasn't put together by Trump. It had already been put together. Obama had put that list together, okay? And the Trump administration just enforced the ban. But, at the end of the day, your job as a president or a leader of a country is to first and foremost protect your citizens. And if you deem a country or a group of people, even if it's a small amount of people, which, that we recognise that, but someone used this analogy before. If I gave you a bowl of peanuts there, right? And, there's 400 peanuts in that bowl, but 2 of them in there are poisonous and you'll die straight away when you eat it. Are you going to take the risk?
Of course not.
Right? And that's the same sort of thing. Okay, it's a very, very small percentage of people who are at risk, but me as the leader of the country, I've got to put things in place to protect.
You know, I didn't know that about Obama, so that's interesting because obviously it's Trump, this privileged white guy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who's quote unquote obviously putting out this legislation of this Muslim ban. But if the case is that actually Obama was the person who actually kind of, you know, got it written up and got it in place, and then, or you know, Trump just almost just authorized it, the narrative would be completely different from the media because it's not this white privileged guy, is it?
Yeah.
I'm sure they've spun it completely differently, but it's a shame that that America has kind of almost by invading these countries, dropping bombs on all. I mean, the amount of wars that is, and actually Donald Trump was the first president in about 40 years, was it?
Yeah, 30 or 40 years
to not actually declare war, and that in itself
the first
is
sitting
brilliant.
president
Like,
to not start any new
not
wars.
dropping bombs on and killing kids and mothers and fathers, and not doing that. I think should be commended, really.
Yeah, but
and
obviously it's not. And now we look at what Joe Biden's administration had done, with Afghanistan. The shambles there, right? You've got Kamala Harris, who's meant to be the border, what do they call him? The border czar. She's head of the crisis at the border, and I think now she's been there once, but never visited the border, not doing anything. She's too busy going around and just smiling everywhere and doing all these photo opportunities. So it's a mess. And you know me, I follow American politics.
There's so much more we can touch on
There's
here
so
as
much
well,
more.
which I'm sure.
Yeah, we don't want to go too deep.
And we're not going to go too deep.
not
And
sure.
I am going to do a video soon on sort of the top misconceptions of Trump. Where he's been taken out of context, because there are so many times that he's been taken out of context. But people often say to me, why do you follow American politics so much? I actually follow it more than British politics. And it's because we are, obviously we're allies with America. We're their closest and they're our closest ally. But a lot of what starts in America culturally finds its way over to here.
Of course.
And so for me, it's kind of like whatever's going on in America is the canary in the coal mine for what's eventually going to come over to here. So some of the some of the socialist policies that they're putting into place there, and some of the almost fascist policies they're putting into place with regards to COVID and all that sort of stuff, there's a chance that eventually that it's going to come over to here. So that's one of the reasons why I keep an eye on American politics so much. Moving on though, because we could be talking about Trump and American politics for a while. Anything else gone on? Didn't you say something about?
Oh, there's been a bit of talk about what's her name, Jesy
Nelson.
Jesy Nelson. Yeah, there's been a bit of uproar. People saying that she's been blackfishing, whatever that means.
Okay.
So basically,
I've heard of catfishing. But...
Yeah, well, there's a new term that they're bringing out now, which is called blackfishing. So they're accusing her of trying to act black, basically, in one of her videos.
Okay.
But
and why is she? And why are they saying that?
I think because she's kind of I don't know. I mean, she's dressed with a chain on, maybe, and she's got a tracksuit on, and I think she's had her hair.
She's had braids in her hair. I think she's got quite a heavy tan as well.
Quite a heavy tan. So it's
okay.
Yeah.
See, I mean, I might be talking out of turn here, but for me, if I was a black person now, I'd kind of be offended at that, because from what I gather, what you're describing is she's adopting a sort of a ghetto persona, an urban ghetto persona. Yeah. Now, if I was a black person, I'd be offended, because I'd be thinking, well, why is it that when somebody acts ghetto, urban and whatever, why is it that you automatically associate that with being black?
Yeah.
Are we not more than just being ghetto, having big nails, gold teeth, chains? And that's what I often see in a lot of the narrative now, when it comes to race and whatever, is even though, and I think the intention behind it is to empower and to uplift, but actually it's the bigotry of low expectations. It's, it kind of shows that the expectations of black people aren't very high to start with.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, well, if someone's acting ghetto, that's acting black because that's how black people act. But
yeah. I think that's
very
disrespectful
offensive
to
and
black people,
disrespectful.
really, yeah.
And in my line of work, especially, we live in Wolverhampton, one of the most multicultural cities in the country.
Yeah.
For its size, I deal with people all walks of life. I was a teacher for 12 years. I taught black kids, white kids, Chinese kids. I taught almost every nationality, and treat everybody on an individual basis. Not every black kid who comes in is urban and ghetto.
Yeah.
And not every white kid who comes in is privileged and coming from a boarding school.
Yeah.
And they say you shouldn't stereotype, yet you've got the media almost stereotyping there in a very kind of passive way.
A very passive way.
And that became that was on the news quite I heard it on the radio basically, and I kind of think about how has that become mainstream news of all the stuff going on in this world. They're talking about this girl blackfishing,
but
who
I
really
think
cares?
the thing at the moment is is to stir up resentment and division everywhere they can. Gay versus straight, cis versus trans, black versus white.
Yeah.
There's so much contradiction though, isn't there? Because one minute it's, unity, we all need to live together. Do you know what I mean? At these rallies, a black person holding a white person hand, holding a Chinese hand with a candle in the air. But then the moment you show interest in another person's culture now, do you know what I mean? It's like, no, stick to your lane.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You can't wear that, stick to your lane. You're white British, you need to stick to what you know. Do you know what I mean? You don't put seasoning on your food.
Yeah.
Have it dry.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, you can't have it both ways. Do you want us to all, live in harmony and unity and share these values, etc.?
Of course, yeah.
Well, it seems to me that, I feel we're going backwards. I feel segregation is becoming more common now.
Tribes?
Right? We're becoming like tribes.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because, like I say, I was a teacher for 12 years, and one thing I can say when I was a teacher is, you can say a lot of negative stuff about this generation now, okay? And I think every previous generation has always got something negative to say. Mm-hmm. But the one thing I can say about this generation, and again, this is anecdotal, but they are the most accepting generation so far. I mean, when we were at school, there was a couple of lads in our year who we all suspected to be gay. They never came out and said it, but we suspected. And they got bullied for it, and they got teased for it. Yeah. I went to a predominantly white school. I'm half Indian for what it matters. Went to a predominantly white school, suffered very badly with racism, got beat up, got, put in hospital at one point, lost my vision for a short period of time, got kicked in the back of the head. I can say that none of that happens today. Like, somebody comes to college, they're transgender. No one bats an eyelid. No one gives them any stick. Someone comes to college, they're gay. No one bats an eyelid. No one cares about race, gender. Yeah. And that's great. I love it. But I feel that now, with the narrative that the media are setting now, they're reversing all of that hard work that's been done over the last 20, 30 years.
I think what they're trying to do, it almost seems like they're trying to create division. They're trying to, division doesn't, obviously, you're always going to get racism, you're always going to get sexism, you're always going to get people saying stupid things on the internet and whatever. It's like the whole social media with the England players after, and the media made this big thing about how, because obviously there was some racial comments put about the footballers that missed the penalties. And kind of, there was this whole, England's got a race problem and, all these race fans. But my view on the whole thing was if you've got, in England, 70 million people in England? How many people have got access to the internet? Or how many people are using the internet? 60 million people, right? And you're talking about people that have got mental problems, that are, whatever, angry, upset, depressed, whatever. And, if you've got all these people with access to these social media platforms, you are going to get people saying stupid things online.
Of course.
Does that mean we've got a race issue? Does it mean that, not necessarily, I personally, I'm half Indian. I know you had some racial problems at school. I
You
never
didn't.
did.
No, you didn't. You went to a different school.
I went to a different school. I've lived in Wolverhampton. I've never had any race problems. I've never really experienced or seen or, any kind of racial segregation or, everyone's very accepting. And so I almost think like, yeah, it probably does exist in the same way that like homophobia exists.
It's never going to go.
It's context
it's never
as well.
going to go.
Like when you look at the England game, right, it was disgusting that there was
Definitely,
racial slurs online afterwards.
Yeah.
But it's the context. So if you look at, post England game, how many tweets there were, right? Let's say there's 1 million tweets, right, praising England,
What
and then there's been
percentage?
100
Yeah.
racist tweets.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There isn't a race problem.
Yeah,
when you
exactly.
look at them.
That's
No.
it. Yeah,
But,
and it's about getting the right information over.
One thing that was sort of bred in our mind from our mom growing up was, this isn't just with racism, this is with any form of bullying or name calling, whatever. It only becomes a problem if you give it power, right? Now you've got these guys who are playing football, right? Top of their game, right? Multimillionaires, can have anything they want, right? Role models to kids, whatever. Why are you allowing, right, some troll sitting in his mom's bloody, kitchen on his laptop, being a keyboard warrior? Why are you giving him the power over you by letting those words bother you? Because I'll tell you what, if it wasn't because of the colour of your skin, it would be because you're wearing glasses, you'd be four eyes, it'd be because you got ginger hair, it'd be because you got buck teeth, or they'll find something.
They'll pick some
on you,
flaw, won't they?
and it's up to you whether you give it power or not. And that's the long and short of it. But I feel like we got to the point where people were just like, something racist was said, people were brushing it off and whatever. But it's almost like now the media don't want you to have thick skin.
Yeah.
They want you to
be offended by
absolutely everything. Because when you create that environment, you create opportunities. There's a lot of, look at people like Jesse Jackson in America, Al Sharpton. These are guys who've made careers off the back of racism, fighting racial injustice. And here's the thing, I personally believe, and this is my personal opinion, I'm not saying this is what's happening, but I personally believe that there's a supply and demand issue at the moment. The supply of racism is not meeting the demand. The demand for racism is not meeting the supply. There's not enough supply for the demand. So what they're doing is they're creating the supply, because most people aren't racist. Most people today are not racist.
Are we misinformed? Are we missing
Potentially.
something?
I mean, we live in a multicultural city
and people listening, if you've had different experiences and if you're constantly on a daily basis getting, racial abuse or whatever, obviously,
then do let us know.
Of course.
I can only speak from my own personal opinions. I'm half Indian, so is yourself. You're actually English, but you look.
Well, he's got
the white guy in the room.
No, but you're married
on the
to
suppressor.
You're married to.
You
an
probably
Indian.
look more Indian than us, to be fair.
You're married to an Indian woman.
Yeah, I'm married to an Indian woman.
Well, she's half Indian. But,
so that makes
and
me
you've
cool.
got kids who are Indian. Not that it matters. I mean, we're not the type of people.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Care
like it doesn't really. I don't really. I judge people on who they are, on their character. Yeah, that's exactly how it
I suppose one of the reasons we're commenting on it is just, you've touched on, we obviously all live in Wolverhampton, and it is so diverse. So every day we encounter, it's got a massive Indian community in Wolverhampton, a really big Jamaican community. There's a Romanian, Polish,
everything. Yeah.
So we live in such a diverse community, and we have no issues with anyone, don't we? So that's why I suppose we're.
So go on. You're from Norfolk. So what if I was to go down to Norfolk now? Would I receive any racial abuse? Do you think, or?
No, I don't think you would. I mean, Norfolk is predominantly white, but I think because of where it is in the country demographically, it's the east of the country. Do you know what I mean? Whereas you look at Wolverhampton, it's the middle of the country, so you've got people passing through all the time. So a lot of people have passed through and then located here. That's why it's so diverse, I think. Whereas Norfolk, obviously, it's in the east and it's kind of quite secluded in one respect. I mean, growing up in Norfolk, there wasn't really many people who weren't white British. I mean, when I think back to my secondary school, I remember in my year there was one Indian gal And then apart from that, that was it in terms of anyone else who wasn't white British. It is becoming a lot more multicultural now as times are changing, etc. Especially Norwich, which is the kind of main city, and it's got a university called UEA, which obviously attracts people from all over. But no, you'd be fine, mate. You'd be with me.
Cool,
I just
cool.
sort you out.
Done. Yeah,
He's all right. He's all right one.
But you know, and going back to the Wilder fight, that was one thing that really disappointed me after was all the anti-white racist, anti-white tweets towards Fury. You know, how could you let this white guy beat you? How can a white guy with a body like that beat a black man? And all this sort of stuff. And it's just like, out of every single sport, boxing is the least racist, least whatever. Because when you get in that ring, it doesn't matter what your height, you know, what your race is, your class is, whatever. You're just two guys duking it out, aren't you?
Yeah.
And it's just shame how race gets brought into everything.
But again, that's just stupid people online, talking about white or black. Like, who cares? It's two men, they're fighting. You know, you pick your side based on who you like as a character. I prefer Tyson Fury because I like his character. Yeah. No other reason, nothing to do with his skin colour or anything like that, you know.
Plus, he's a fellow Brit.
He's a fellow Brit as well. You
usually follow there's a lot of people in America who were going for Wilder because he was American. Yeah. You know, and it's okay to be patriotic.
Got to back your boy, ain't you?
Exactly. Do I think there's a race problem? No, but do I think there's a class issue? No, I think there's more of a class issue in this country than there is a race issue.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
I think that there's more that people are judged more for their class.
Right.
You know, working class, chavs, and I say that in air quotes because that's what they're, you know, the derogative term for people in working class situations. But I think there's more of a class issue than there is race issue. I think people are more judged on class, and that goes back to, you know, hundreds of years of the British hierarchy. I think people are more judged on class than it is race. And it just so happens that you might have a particular group of people living within a certain class bracket, you know, and therefore it's seen as racism, but actually it's more of a classism thing.
So how would you define class? Is that like how much money you're making, or is it just kind of what?
I mean,
how you act, or what?
This is the $1 million question, isn't it? But most of the time, class is based on sort of
it's
financial,
most
isn't it?
Of the time, isn't it? Yeah.
And it's even classed on your type of job. I mean, you know, let's working class now, builder. Some builders are on more than doctors.
Yeah.
You know, but they're still considered working class.
Yeah.
And the culture is still working class.
Yeah.
You know, no matter, a builder can be on 200 grand a year, but to a doctor, they're always going to be seen as a working class.
Inferior,
Inferior. Whereas a doctor's on 100 grand a year, he's always going to be seen as, you know, the upper echelon of class in this country.
So would you say it's kind of finances, education,
industry
education,
as well?
Also,
industry,
Also, geographical location as well.
Of course.
There's going to be certain areas that are always going to be working class.
Yeah.
You know, no matter how much they get brought up, no matter how much the house prices go up, no matter how much the median income goes up, always going to be seen as working class. On the flip side, there's always going to be areas, just like, you know, I don't want to offend anyone, but 20, 30 years ago, Goldthorne Park was a massively prosperous area. Not saying it's not now, but it was like, you know, a really prosperous area. Same as round by West Park, very prosperous areas. Whereas now, you know, the house prices have probably balanced out a bit more, and it doesn't take as much to move on there. Yeah. But it's still always going to be seen as a high class area just because of the geographical location. You know, so I think that's one of the main things is it's classism, not racism.
And I think on that note, we should probably.
So you know,
quite a while, haven't we now?
Pleasure, boys. Again,
I think we've covered a lot of ground today,
and no doubt we're going to get a little bit of backlash for our views. We received a little bit on the last,
but we've only touched on the surface.
We have, yeah.
Everything
and also,
we spoke about, we can go a lot deeper on.
And everyone has different views, and ultimately, we know that we are. We know we're not racist. We know. I mean, because now that you've said that you support Donald Trump,
Yeah.
people are going to assume, oh, well, you're a racist then, because that's the kind of like, you know, you support Donald Trump, you must be a racist, and it's not the case at all.
Not at all, no.
So hopefully this podcast, along the
we'll
way, will
elaborate
help
on that
debunk
as
some of
well
these
in
We're gonna,
future
yeah. I mean,
podcast episodes.
Exactly, and what these podcasts are is it's us just having a bit of a chat and getting off some things off our chest, but it's also for you guys to get a little bit of an insight into who we are and what we're about. And the key, term that's being bandied about at the moment, particularly from the left media, is we need to have a conversation. But what I see a lot of the time is one side, particularly the left, putting their agenda across or their point of view across. And anytime somebody from a differing point of view comes in and says something, they're automatically shut down. You're a racist,
Censored.
you're a bigot, you're a sexist.
Censored as well.
And censored. And all we're doing is we're saying, look, there is a different side to the coin. But actually, just like me and you said last week when we had the Jeff Bezos debate, is when we actually come down to the heart of the matter, we don't differ very much in our opinions.
Yeah.
We both agree that, in that note, we both agreed that something needs to be done more to, bridge the gap, and equally distribute wealth. But we just got different ways of how we are to get there.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same when we talk about race, gender, whatever.
Most definitely.
All we want is for people to be able to live their lives and, not have any impediments put on them by anybody, not be held back by anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't just mean that the so-called oppressed are the only ones who are allowed to have their voices heard.
Yeah, this is what we want.
Yeah.
It has to
Unity.
be. Exactly.
Unity.
It has to be from everyone. But anyway, this is our third episode. I'm really enjoying doing these. I'm loving doing these. I hope you guys are the same. But we hope that you guys are getting something from it as well. Do comment below. Let us know if there's things that you disagree with. But also let us know that if there's things that you like about it. We're planning on doing some videos where we're going to be maybe answering some of your questions. So I think we're going to do one. You've had a few people asking about crypto, Ewan.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to do one on crypto. So do ask below.
Someone said something about why us three didn't go into modelling as well. So we'll address that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Address that.
So I think we'll leave it there.
Cool, yeah.
Great, guys.